welcome our panelists.
Great. Thanks everybody for coming. This is really great to be here. This is a panel sponsored by Keychange and TuneCore, and they graciously asked us to facilitate, and we're really excited to do that. DEI is not just a buzzword. It's a very real thing that when companies do it well, bottom line in a positive way, as well as making a better experience for more people and for more customers. So we're going to get into that, but we're going to get into what you can do about that, and I think it's going to be pretty engaging for you. So.
Definitely, and because DEI is so much more effective when we will engage the audience, so I want to know that there will be engagement coming up in the future.
Yeah, because we figure here to generally, yeah. So you'll get a little bit of that benefit today.
So great. So we'll start off with some one-word intros. We'll cover off on the business case for DEI. We'll review some definitions just to level set, and then we've got two exercises, one about recruiting and one about retention.
Cool.
I'm Mikal Celentano, one of the co-founders of Isnt.
And I'm James Celentano, one of the co-founders of EnterGain. We're a husband and wife team. Just you'll wonder, seeing the same last name. We've had the firm for about 8 years. We help companies find the right talent to run their business. We help companies upskill help the people on their teams, upskill people as leaders and become better bosses. We help companies with process around people and human capital. So that's what we do. And you may want to pull out the black and white copy with our notes on it.
We'll do that.
Yeah. Welcome. Come on in. So, one-word intros. And first thing we want you to do is kind of turn to the next to you and each think of one word that your coworkers would use to describe how you uniquely contribute to your organization's culture. So think about that for a second. Michael and I are going to do that here. So you can see what this is like. So I'm James.
Yeah, James. And how do you contribute to the company culture?
I'd hope that people would see me as empathetic, particularly empathetic to people with invisible disabilities, as I have a couple minor ones of those.
Excellent. And I'm Mikal, and I will the company see that I bring allyship, as we have a family member who's LGBTQ+.
Yeah, so cool. So I want you guys to just take a minute. I'm going to break you up because you work together. So redistribute yourselves and find someone you don't know that well in the room here, and just kind of do that. A one-word intro, what you think you might contribute uniquely to your company's culture. And people on the Discord, feel free to shout out, and we've got a moderator in the room here who will bring up your point. We could do it anonymously too, if that's better for you. Cool. Or we could put them in twos, and they pick
two
one
and three.
thing.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Maybe we'll do that.
Depending on
So
the numbers,
we may
twos
make
seems to work.
twos and a three or something. Yeah.
Do you have a second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe we could do that. Like, they seem pretty easy.
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle. Hi. All right. Let's give you another 30 seconds to wrap up your one-word intros. 30 seconds. Come on in. Why don't you come on in? You can sit with Michelle up there in the back. All right, I'm going to bring you back here, everybody. All right. Wow. Okay, time's up. I don't think the mic is on. Is
And
this
we have
Carol?
more
Is this on or no?
interactions, so,
No.
okay.
Time's up, everybody. You'll get more time to chat with one another, I promise. All right.
So is the
just
danger.
this one's a show of hands. Who got to learn something about the other person that you would have not seen just by looking at them and seeing them walk by? Great. That's wonderful, right? And that's part of this idea of being welcoming and inclusive and creating spaces where people can have a sense of belonging. So that's great. So, and this may be just raise your hand if you have something you'd be comfortable sharing with the group here. It's a pretty small group, so hopefully you're comfortable. Is there one thing that others could do to be more welcoming of the unique thing that you bring to work, right? And for myself, I'd say what I had shared before was I have a couple of invisible disabilities. One is a hearing problem over here. So people could be more welcoming to me. It's just put up with the fact that sometimes we might be talking and then I move to the other side of you so I can hear you. And just, kind of accept me for that if you can. Does anybody have something that you'd want to share that gets you to be more welcoming to something that's unique about you? Yeah. Oh.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have long COVID, and if you look at me, you probably wouldn't notice, and it comes up mainly in terms of like trouble breathing, and so sometimes I have to use the chat function when I'm on calls. Because if I talk too much, it'll become harder to breathe. So, but I think if one just looks at me, that wouldn't be apparent, and so that's one way colleagues could help me out every now and then.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for using up your press breath. Hear that. Okay, good. So,
Jane.
Jane.
Don't-
Yes.
It's just,
I don't know if this relates to the word that I use. Is that okay? But, something that I face is I'm a Scottish person working in the US, and I didn't realize like all the language colloquial differences between how Americans talk and how British people talk. And sometimes that can get me in trouble. Like I once used the term bonus scheme, and the American colleague I was talking to thought I meant they were scheming. But bonus scheme is just like, bonus program,
Right.
Right.
So I think what would help me is a bit of benefit of the doubt that I do come from a different country.
Mm-hmm.
We do use different words, and my intentions are ultimately good.
Wonderful. That's such a great example of working cross cultures. Thanks, Jane, for sharing that. Awesome. Well, let's, anybody have anything else they'd want to share? Keep chugging along here then. Okay, good. So we've got some stats that hopefully create a business case for you from, for DEI thinking in everything you do. So one, diverse workforces. If we look at, and sorry for the Fortune 500 stuff here, it's just there's really good data because they're public companies, they have to report on all kinds of stuff. Fortune 500 CEOs, 7% are women. I think we know there's more women than that in the world. So there's more than population.
I don't think you have to debate it, yeah.
Right. So we're way behind there. Only 2% Fortune 500 CEOs are Asian, 3% Latinx, only 1% African American, only 1% are LGBTQ+. So look, I think lagging behind there.
For sure, but the business case and the economic driver behind why DEI is a good idea in addition to the fact that socially it's an excellent thing that we should all be striving for, is that 20% teams that are diverse are 20% more innovative. Teams that are diverse reduce risk by about 30% based on the studies, and as well, inclusive cultures are twice as likely to meet or exceed financial goals. So, the business case is there for DEI if somebody had to sell it in to their organization, for sure.
Yeah, Robert.
I have a question. In DEI, is age a factor as well?
Age is a factor as well, absolutely. Yeah, generational diversity. Yeah, we're going to look at all manner of diversity, and in that we're going to respect the fact that there are some groups that have had like kind of a worse deal than others, right? And so we all have to take extra care to be especially inclusive of those groups. But I think in there, to the extent, look, I've got one really good ear, right? I got some hearing problems over here. It's enough to give me empathy about anybody who's got any point of difference, right? And so that's one of the things we call on people to do. I think we're all in the last 18, 24 months, there's been a big light shined on diversity, which is a really important thing. A lot of it we're talking about what's wrong with it. What we're going to try to focus on today, and all that deserves its time, right? We could spend 2 weeks or more, two lifetimes, talking about all that's wrong around DEI in society and the workplace. Today, we're going to try to just give you a few takeaways of things that you can just do. Like you can just walk out this room and do immediately.
Yeah, action items.
Action items that'll just make a difference, no matter what your level of authority is in an organization, et cetera. So let's go to equity and compensation. Women earn about 80 cents on the dollar compared to their male peers, which is up from about 60% since the 1980s. That's some progress, but still progress needs to be made. Women are paid 89% of their male peers in a earlier career age group of 25 to 34. So that means we're continuing to make progress as new women enter the workforce. So that's good, but it's still a big call to action that there's continues to be a lot of work to do.
No, exactly, and certainly, it's been proven, women can control over 70% of the purchasing power, and everyone can do the math. The more women have their income of parity, the higher the spending, the better the economic numbers. Everything will get better from a business standpoint in all businesses.
Yeah. And then on inclusion and mobility, over the past 10 years, board seats went from 16% women to 27% women, but ethnic minorities only went from like 8% to 10%. So there's a lot of work to do sort of in that pipeline to people getting the kind of experience they need to become board members, right? So we all have to strive to figure out how do we solve that puzzle.
Right, and it's been proven again through the studies, diverse boards are more financially responsible and financially more successful. So it's certainly, time and time again, studying different aspects, the business cases there.
And we've got footnotes to all these studies that we're referencing here. So if anyone wants to email us and get a copy of the deck, you can kind of go into the notes and if you're curious of those different studies. So we're going to define a few key terms here: diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. As I said earlier, there's a whole other set of words that are really important for all of us to understand: discrimination, bias, microaggressions, abuse of power differentials, all that stuff, incredibly important. For the interest of time, we're not going to focus on those. I think there's a lot of really good forums where you can seek out the definitions and the issues around that and overcoming those issues. Today, in the interest of time, we're going to focus on just a few positive, actionable things that you can do in your everyday life and work, behaviors, habits that are going to support DEI in your organizations. We hope that's our goal. So first, let's just hit these 4 definitions really quick, just to level set. So diversity. Next one, hold back the definition. Just put the so. Diversity, show of hands, like how many of you think you could write a definition of diversity? Okay, a couple of you, good. You've probably all seen a definition of diversity. Here's one, this is a constantly evolving space, so we encourage people to think about this, representation in a group of a wide variety of age, race, ethnicity, cultures, beliefs, religion, experiences, gender, sex, sexual orientation, socioeconomic backgrounds, mental and physical abilities, knowledge, et cetera. Right? This is constantly evolving. So if anyone has anything to add to it, I'd love to hear that. Does anybody feel they'd have anything they could add to a definition of what is diversity? Cool. All right.
So equity. Show of hands, how many would feel comfortable writing a definition of equity? A little harder.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, okay, cool, good.
Good. Well, for purposes of today, we're defining it as fair and equal and impartial access to opportunity for respect, learning, advancement, influence, and compensation.
You're welcome.
Anything else to add? Again, all of these are evolving, and the definitions are only getting better and better as the topics are discussed
Yeah. Yeah.
more and more.
Inclusion. Anyone feel like you have a sense of what that, we won't call on you for it, but just kind of a show of hands if you think like, yeah, I could write a definition of inclusion. Good. A bunch of you have a good sense of what this is. So we've got a definition: assurance that all are invited, welcomed, acknowledged, listened to, heard, taken seriously, and celebrated, whether, without conscious or unconscious bias. So it's a tall order, right? And this is, a few years ago, we maybe didn't have as long a definition of this, but the more you think about it, it's like, oh, I need to do more than just invite people. I need to do more than just listen to them. Really need to kind of get them as much a seat at the table as possible. I'd love it if anyone might have anything to add. You're welcome. Yeah.
Maybe with no prior experience, just how can you make that a safe space for them and also make it like a great opportunity where they can really shine?
That's really great. Yeah, you bring up a really important point, right? Which is, if there's a really low percentage of women and minority on boards, as we bring them onto boards, a higher percentage of them will have little or, it may be their first time on a board compared to their peers on that board. So I love that point. It needs to be sort of a masterclass for people to get them a mentor on that. So really important stuff. Anyone else want to add on inclusion? Cool.
And I think that dovetails nicely into belonging. Just again, quick show of hands, how many feel like they could write a definition for belonging? Excellent, good. When we're defining it here is, feeling of security and support that, results when members from a group are experiencing acceptance and inclusion. Results for individuals allows individuals to bring their full, authentic selves to work and deliver those high levels of engagement and performance, and really, optimize their opportunity and their work that they can bring. Anything else that we should have added to this? All right.
Good. All right.
Good.
Your definitions were better, apparently. Good. So we're going to talk a little bit about diversity, both visible and invisible. And part of why I think this is one of these positive things we can all do is if we all, as this DEI conversation, grows in the business community, people think, oh, well, someone's diverse and someone else isn't. But that doesn't give us very much practice creating belonging, right? If we only think it applies to some people. So if you take a mindset, if you shift your mindset to saying, well, I'm going to embrace everyone in terms of things that they bring, diverse qualities, whether they're visible or invisible, then you're just going to be better at embracing and welcoming people who have a diverse characteristic where they've been maybe perhaps marginalized before, more so than people from other groups. And if you do this and approach it with just genuine curiosity and welcoming, it's going to create safety. And you're going to notice that people start to bring their whole self to work. And when they do that, that leads to people being more engaged. And when people are more engaged, they're more productive. And that's just good for everybody, right?
Well, and one of the things we've heard in other panels is, ask the community, ask somebody how they could be supported, ask what could be done to make it more inclusive. And if they're able to bring their authentic self, they'll feel comfortable sharing that, and you'll get to those places hopefully faster and more effectively.
Yeah, for sure. So on the visible column, what do we think are some visible points of diversity, right? This is pretty easy to answer, right? So we're going to see things like race, ethnic origin, expressed religion, whatever that could mean a lot of things. Maybe how somebody dresses, or someone who wears a piece of jewelry that expresses their religion. Somebody's gender, somebody's physical disability that's visible, that becomes apparent when you meet that person. LGBTQ, right? Someone may may be more expressive about that. And then we have privilege on here. It's the level of privilege, right? It's
And sometimes the lack of privilege.
and sometimes the lack of privilege, right? Somebody may you think, oh wow, well they grew up with money, but maybe they also grew up in an abusive environment too, or maybe somebody grew up without money, but they had a lot of access to mentors and people who taught them really good values. So there's all kinds of points of. Has anyone ever been in an activity called a privilege walk? You're familiar with that? So Google that. I wish we had time to do one of those. It's a really cool thing. Look up privilege. They'll kind of go through all of these. We've facilitated a bunch of these where you go through a whole list of points of privilege, and people kind of step forward if they say, oh yeah, I grew up in a house with more than 50 books in the house, or or you take a step backwards if you like, oh I grew up with only one parent, or I grew up in a house where we had one of my parents was laid off for more than a year, or whatever, right? So all these things, and you learn to appreciate that, oh, people are dealing with all kinds of stuff. I just need to be more accommodating generally. And so then let's go to the invisible ones, right? You may make assumptions about what you see and hear and experience when you get to know somebody, but there may be other invisible things that, for whatever reason, you don't know about, right? Maybe it's because the space isn't welcoming enough, or maybe it's because they just want to keep it private. But those things could be ethnic origin, religious beliefs, invisible disabilities, neurodiversity, personality, LGBTQ plus, or privilege, level of privilege again. So when we start thinking about, okay, how can I show up and make sure I'm welcoming everything about this person, whether or not I have some kind of physical cue, visible cue about a point of diversity, right? So that's kind of a tall order. Yeah, Jane. So personality in this context means, oh, well, that person who they sat in the room and they didn't talk, they'd never raised their hand, they must not be interested, they must not be good, they must not be smart. I asked them a question, they didn't respond. It's like, no, they just may be in that personality quadrant of a deep thinker. They're very analytical. They're going to sit back and gather more information first. They may be most interested in the topic at hand. So that
It's the subtle shout out to the introverts. And maybe I gave myself away. But.
And so, and again, a lot of studies show that the more diversity of personality, sort of in that Myers-Briggs definition, tradition of personality, the more diversity of personality on teams, on organizations, on boards, the higher the productivity, the higher the problem-solving ability, the higher risk mitigation ability. So that's why that's sort of in there. Cool. Any other questions or reactions to this? Maybe would anyone debate with us on this? I'm always up for
Or did we
help.
miss anything
Did we miss anything? Yeah.
that we should have included?
Absolutely, yeah. Mental health absolutely
Absolutely.
is on that, is in that bucket.
Maybe what Jane said before about language, people who are not native speakers of English, for example.
Yeah,
Ethnic origin
doesn't
doesn't really say language.
say language, right? And
yeah.
so
Cultural cues and context could be a challenge for someone.
and over my career, I've pushed back on many a client. None of my current clients, because they all get it, but past clients, let's say. It's like, yeah, I think their English is better than your Mandarin, by the way, or whatever it is, It's like, oh, I don't know. Like, no, their English is way better than your Mandarin. When your Mandarin gets that good, then you can beat them up about their English. Okay, got it, right? So you got to be ready to push back on people, right? I've got to be, we're ready to lose a client over these things, over standing up for these things, right? You can't be afraid to say and push back and say, no, we need you to do the right thing about this.
And sometimes the easiest way to push back is with a question, as
Yes.
opposed to just confronting it straight on. Too, if you feel like, nah, I think we need to revisit this or
Yeah.
come at it a different way.
Yeah, how good is your Mandarin?
Exactly. Yeah. Next time we'll do the interview in Mandarin. You're all right with that. So.
Good. All right, so we're going to have some fun now. We're going to do, we might get to both of these exercises. Let's see. But we're going to we're going to ask you guys to get in pairs and enjoy a little healthy debate. We'll demonstrate one here. And we're going to ask you to pick from a couple of things that could be, you know, a point around what's going to drive diversity more so than another thing. So Michael and I are going to debate one first, which is paid versus unpaid internships, right? So I would say...
An ongoing point of discussion in the world, but, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, I would say unpaid internships drive more diversity because the company can afford to bring in more interns, so they can have more people, have more inclusivity.
Well, I think a paid internship would be better because not everyone is able to work for free for an extended period of time. And therefore, you're able to evaluate a broader applicant pool and therefore hopefully a more diverse intern pool if you pay for the internships.
Okay, maybe I'm losing this debate.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
But an unpaid internship would be required to meet the federal requirements of, you know, is this person learning something that's aligned with their formal education in college, in a college course, let's say. So that means in the internship, we're going to emphasize learning. So wouldn't that be better, more enriching for people in that experience?
Potentially, but in a paid internship, I don't have to focus so much on the schoolroom side of the experience, and I can think more about what's important to my business, what can this person learn, what could train this person possibly for a role at my company or some other company in my space.
Okay, okay. But that unpaid intern, they're going to be hungrier, right? That's the rite of passage. That's how a lot of us started, got our foot in the door in the music industry. You're just going to have a hungry, passionate person if they're not being paid, right?
Or they could be angry and resentful because they've spent all this time working really hard at your company and you haven't paid them at all. And therefore, when they think about their next move or their career, they may be looking for some place that will value them and will pay them and realizes that they have a long-term great capability. And by paying them, you as the employer possibly are also envisioning that person as a potential employee and may invest in a different way than if they were just this semester's crop of free interns.
Aha. So you're saying, as an employer, I'm going to just be more committed to that person, take them more seriously.
Potentially.
Okay.
Although people run great programs on both ways.
That's true.
So-
Yeah. Companies run great programs each way. You might see from our little debate that we kind of err on the side of paid internships, by the way. Pay that, you know, prevailing minimum wage. But in our exercises now, we want you guys, this says get in groups of 3. Get in groups of 2, and then just each pick one of these points on the right, right? So you'll just each one of you just own one of these points, and then have this little debate back and forth as to why your thing will better contribute to diversity
In recruiting.
in the recruiting process.
Yeah, there are different strategies that could definitely help increase diversity in recruiting.
Yeah.
And so are there advantages to one over others? Are they equally good?
Yeah.
We'll let your pair take that up.
All right. So find someone you don't know, someone you don't work with. Maybe you know them, but you don't work with them every day. So, and if we end up with an odd number, you could be a group of 3, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Nothing against groups of 3.
So we've got a 2, a
I think
3,
they figured it
2.
out. I think we'll spend more time micromanaging it.
Yeah,
They could actually debate it. I mean,
yeah.
since we didn't.
Yep.
All right.
There's 6 groups.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Right, so nobody's in more than a group of 3.
Yeah,
Cool.
nobody's in more than a group of 3.
It's weird to do this all sitting down, isn't it?
Yeah, but they don't have enough loose microphones.
Right,
for
right.
us to-
And for those of you on Discord, feel free to communicate in the system, and we have an AV moderator here who will bring your your points of view to us for us to share with the group who's live here. I wish the woman in the green room could have come down and do this since she didn't get to take my class.
I know. Well,
It's like taking your class.
it's like taking your class. With me chiming in sometimes.
Yeah, no, with like a guest speaker who does all the work. You, the guest speaker, who's smarter and more successful than you.
I do make sure we get paid the same amount.
Yeah, right. "14-minute one." Okay, great, thank you. So maybe I'll reel him in. I'll give him a minute.
Yeah, give a minute or two, and then we can do it quickly, and then just open it up for questions. Did you check in on our Discord community? Oh,
So I'll give him a minute from now.
yeah.
Oh, look at my watch. Oh no, my watch didn't use it. What time is it up there? It's 5 up there? It's like,
No, it's 11. Oh.
no, it's 4
Oh,
minutes
oh,
to
they
12.
didn't turn the clock back. It's
It's
what time is it now?
it's 4 minutes.
What time is it now? Oh, it is. Oh, so it's 11:56.
Tell time much. It's disorienting presenting, isn't it? You can't read a clock.
I need new glasses.
All right, time's up.
We
Bring
need
it
a
in.
bell or something.
Bring it in. Oh, and we have one.
Oh,
Do we have one, Joseph?
oh
okay.
yeah,
Oh, perfect.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Physical.
All right, everybody. Time's up. Time's up. We want to hear just one quick point from each group. Another exercise, if we can, in the next 10 minutes here. So let's just do kind of one quick point from each group. You can, Joseph, maybe just move kind of sequentially through so you save the walking time.
Well, we're undecided on the value of college.
Hold on, guys. Listen up.
So we were conflicted on the value of college. We thought, not required really opens it broadly, but there are some things that you learn besides in the coursework from going to college, skills and broadening, and that has value to a company as well. So we were really kind of debating that.
Conflicted. So maybe there's a call to action for companies for people that join us without that college experience. How do we create those situations and opportunities for that kind of learning in their environment, or support people with a tuition reimbursement program if they want to pursue a degree at night or something like that. Cool.
So in my experience, which is working in the federal government for 20 years, in very white environments, my office, all our sister offices were overeducated white people, and a lot of the administrative support staff were African American middle-aged women. I constantly asked why are we so white? I think you should recruit both from HBCUs and from local or community colleges. A lot of times, immigrants or income individuals start with community colleges to then get to a higher or a more accredited college. I don't know what the right term would be. Regarding the point of requiring college, I think that would in part depend on the task at hand. As an intern, you could end up spending all your time, training that person and bringing them up to speed, and you're not getting anything in return because they don't have some basic skills around operating in a business or a professional environment. So I would have a lot more questions before I'd be able to.
Yeah.
What would be diversity? Well, and I absolutely think we should pay interns. I was never paid as an intern. And I agree with your points on that debate.
Cool. Great. Thank you. Yeah, let's hear from the next group. Yeah, just a couple of sharp points. Yeah, that maybe there's a group in the back there. Yeah, just one key point from each group so we can save time for another.
Our key point was you need all three, because it's kind of like it's a helpful exercise to learn how to advocate for each one, but to make hierarchy out of something that should be just a multi-pronged approach, it's a trick question. Like, you got to go with all three. Yeah, that's my quick point.
You found me out. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we would echo that. Also, it's a bit tough to decide on something if we don't know really what's the goal and what's the job and what level is needed and what does the company need. Do they need more diversity? Do they need more people of color? Yeah, so pretty much on the same page as the last group.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah, echoing that. I think we actually just got in a rabbit hole of the rap of college and student loans, and it got pretty depressing pretty quick,
Yeah.
So nice way to start the day out. Okay.
Yeah.
Robert and I were talking about how these are all just different paths to results. So if you don't require college, that opens up to literally everyone, but you may still attract more college-educated people. What is going to be really helpful if you specifically recruit from HBCUs and low-cost and community colleges is you're giving a more direct path when people are at college or they're starting out, they may not know where to look for the jobs. I mean, that is a big problem, I think, for young people, and even as an employer, like knowing where to advertise a job, it's a bit of a minefield sometimes. So I think, we agree, ultimately, all three are really necessary, and they're all just different paths.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm really great that you guys collectively arrive at that conclusion. Sometimes we've had clients say oh yeah, let's recruit, the HBCUs, let's recruit out of Howard or something. And I'd be like, great, yeah, because why? You're attracting all your hires now from Stanford and Michigan and Harvard, because Howard's a really competitive school. You're attracting all the smart kids now. It's no, you need to just go to schools that are diverse. And we'll I just made a note. If people want to ask for these slides, we've got a list of some schools that are particularly diverse, that are just schools that may or may not be on your radar, but they have just really diverse student bodies, programs for diversity. So if you're looking for those entry-level folks or experienced hires as alums, that can be a way to be sure that you're tapping into a really diverse community. And there's a million ways you can, but that's just one. So.
So you've gotten through the recruiting hurdle. Now, how are you going to retain people? So we've got a similar exercise, 3 different ideas for you to debate on what's going to be most effective at retaining a more diverse workforce.
Yeah. So same kind of exercise. You can go back into the same groups in the interest of time here, and we'll give you just 5 minutes flat to debate this one. So we have a couple minutes left at the end for Q&A.
Yeah.
So each person pick your one point, debate away. these are edits to that talk. Oh, this one
I've
has
just-
edits to that talking point.
Yeah, I've just made
Cool.
one list that was,
So-
they'll all leave with this, don't worry,
Yeah, so then I just have to remember to, before I share them out,
to make that edit.
yeah, to make these.
Well, let's do
We'll do it.
We'll do the
Yeah.
housekeeping afterwards.
I'll just mention it to Emily so she doesn't let me forget.
Okay.
Yeah, so similar to our grant. Okay, so just before I share this, I was talking about those sections.
I just realized these were all World's Fair posters, basically. Yeah, in the other room, they were all movies. I was like, this is so funny, the law school.
Yeah, but maybe it's an intellectual property thing.
Or just, these are what posters are about, and we'll just make it attractive and come up with some themes. Yeah. Greatest lawsuits of all time. It's not a poster series.
Great. Lawsuits.
Lawyers, not to hire. Not a
Right.
poster series. So.
What do we think? We've got like another 30 seconds. 30 seconds to go. 30 seconds. I'll debrief this one differently. Like, who advocates for one? Who
Yeah.
for three?
And then who up? Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll pick some Q&A.
Yeah, and then we'll open it up.
All right, friends, bring it in. Time's up.
There's never enough time for these
Never enough time for
exercises,
these.
so 5 minutes, 50 minutes.
Yep. Okay. All right, time's up. I don't think it's on.
I don't think it's on.
I don't think it's on. I think the Discord. All right, everybody. All right, so raise your hand if you had chose to advocate for number one, including people on CC and inviting them to observe meetings. So yeah, so Lauren, talk to us. What did?
We just sort of felt that it's something that's maybe forgotten about. And it's like a very easy thing to do, and overcompensating can actually just be a way to bring someone in and make someone feel more included, especially with like new employees or in a remote setting where you're not seeing somebody in an office all of the time. Just doing something as simple as CCing on more emails than possible will just be really beneficial to having someone feel like they're a part of the team.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. My experience with it has always been, when I do it, then I'm thinking of that person more. And then that person is in my head more on stuff that's going on. And when something blows up or I can't be in 3 places at once, that person raises their hand and say, oh, this thread came in, I got it, right? And then they're stretching into the next thing. And it's going to be easier to get them up some developmental hurdle and get them more dog years of experience sooner, right? So it's...
And the other thing Lauren touched on is now that we're remote and we're hybrid, you lose that osmosis that happens from the office. I overheard that conversation. So it's another reason to be especially cognizant of it now.
Yeah, for sure. Who picked number 2? Who advocated for number 2? Just Jane? Oh, okay. And here, so let's hear from you. Beyond affinities, intentionally engage with people who are different.
So we brought up just that research shows you're more likely to talk to colleagues who look like you, invite colleagues who look like you to meetings, and go to coffee with those who look like you. So it's going to take effort on your part to feel uncomfortable, stretch beyond that comfort zone, and invite others to be a part of a call or to go have coffee and to network with others. So we think this is really valuable for increasing your network and promoting them, and also like supporting them potentially to another role within the company and beyond.
Yeah. Yeah, and you kind of have to do it on purpose to get out of, to break. I mean, this isn't a session on unconscious bias, but it's a tool you can use to kind of break this cycle of unconscious bias, to say like, oh, who is most different from me that I could invite for coffee, or I haven't had lunch with yet this week in the office, or whatever it is. So that's, yeah, a really, really powerful one. Cool. Who advocated for number 3? Cool. Sorry. No?
Speaking for us, we have foggy brains today. We chose 3 because you want to set people up for success. And while I'm all about the inclusion and making sure people can join meetings or be copied in, it could also feel insulting that it's, oh, by the way, if you'd like to listen or watch,
Yes.
you can, but you're not an instrumental part of this meeting. And it could kind of backfire and go the other way, in my experience. Now, if you're an intern, perhaps, that's appropriate in my mind to be CC'd, like, come if you can, you're welcome, but you're not going to speak. And then the affinities, intentionally engaging, very important. That should just be a norm. It isn't. However, what if you intentionally engage and you build up a promise or an idea of a promise in that staff person's mind that, you're on your way to be a huge success within this organization, but they can't live up to that expectation that you maybe have in mind. And then are you setting someone up for failure?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of dimensions here. Equitably engage everybody, right? Right. And then there's it's a whole other seminar, what we call situational leadership. You kind of meet people at their kind of readiness on a task and skill level to kind of push them up. But that's a thing. Google situational leadership. You can find a summary of that learning model out there. But again, I think as a group, it sounds like all 3 of these things in tandem can be really, really powerful.
Yeah.
There wasn't a bad strategy in here.
And the mentorship helps someone stretch
Yes.
into a role, but they have, a fallback, and they have support, a professional who can guide them.
Yeah.
And so setting them up for success versus failure.
I totally agree. And you'll be less likely to miss somebody if you're doing 1 and 2. You're more likely to make sure everybody ends up getting a mentor, because you'll kind of be thinking about everybody, right? So cool. So I want to thank you guys. I think we went over a minute or 2. So here's our emails. We know a bunch of you already, but feel free to jot down our emails and reach out to us anytime. Certainly email us if you want a copy of the slide, because there's some stuff in the notes section that might be valuable resources for you. I want to thank our audio video team here. Thanks, guys. And thank everyone on Discord.
I don't know if we want to
questions
squeak in
from-
questions or.
Yeah.
although it
Any
seems
last
like there's-
last minute Q&A before they break down the door there?
Does your firm do entry-level jobs also, or not?
From a recruiting standpoint, only in cases where we have kind of a broader relationship with the client, then we end up doing some of that. But we advise a lot of companies on recruiting process and learning and development process at all levels, including entry level. So absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Thank you all for coming. We unfortunately have to move on. So please, thank you. Thank you to our presenters.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.